Nikola Jokic walks onto the court looking like he just rolled out of bed. And yet, by the end of the night, he's sitting on another near 30-point triple-double like it's part of his daily routine. There's no dramatic celebration, no chest pounding, no made-for-TV swagger. He simply goes out, dismantles an NBA defense with surgical calm, and jogs back down the court as if he's checking items off a grocery list. And that's the problem, we've all gotten used to it. The league is watching a player put up numbers that should shatter the internet every single night. And somehow, it barely makes a ripple. A 29-point, 16-rebound, 12-assist masterpiece used to be a generational moment. Now, it's just Jokic doing Jokic things, a phrase that perfectly captures how numb fans have become to something that shouldn't feel normal at all. Part of the invisibility comes from how effortless he makes it look. Jokic doesn't explode to the rim or attack with the aggression that fans were conditioned to praise. His game is quiet, subtle, almost too smooth for its own good. He scores without force, passes without flair, dominates without theatrics. And because he never looks rushed or panicked, people assume it must be easy. What they don't understand is that mastering the game to this level, controlling the pace-bending defenses and creating shots that barely seem real requires a level of genius the league hasn't seen in decades. We're watching history disguised as routine, a player stacking up statistical seasons that should redefine greatness. And yet fans scroll past the box scores like they're reading weather updates. But this calm dominance isn't just another chapter in Jokic's story. It's the turning point. Because this season didn't just elevate him, it separated him from the entire league. Most players need a perfect night to even sniff 40 points. Jokic walked into the Clippers game and casually detonated for 55. And the wildest part wasn't the total, it was how he did it. He shot 78% from the field, barely touched the rim, and finished a plus 28 in just 33 minutes of action. That's not a hot streak. That's not a lucky night. That's domination so precise it borders on unreal. The Clippers threw big swings, double switches, none of it mattered. Every defensive adjustment dissolved the moment the ball touched Jokic's hands. He floated in jumpers, bullied smaller defenders, manipulated rotations, and dissected double teams with the cold patience of someone solving a puzzle he's already beaten 100 times. The stat itself is absurd, but the history behind it is even more insane. In the entirety of NBA history, only 7 players have ever scored 55 points on 75% shooting or better. 7. And every name on that list is a perimeter scorer: Luka, Harden, Clay, Steph, George Gervin, Karl Malone. Not a single center has touched that level of efficiency since Wilt Chamberlain in 1969. 65 years of NBA basketball, thousands of players, millions of possessions. And the only big man who's ever recreated Wilt's level of scoring perfection is Nikola Jokic. And here's what makes it even more surreal. He had 52 points through 3 quarters, which means he wasn't even hunting the stat. He did his damage organically in rhythm, without forcing anything. If Denver hadn't been up big, he could have pushed 60, maybe 70, and the game still wouldn't have looked chaotic. It would have looked controlled, predictable, almost too easy. One historic game should be enough to shake the league. But for Jokic, this wasn't an outlier. It was a warning shot. And what he did afterward was even scarier. And what Jokic did after the 55-point masterpiece shouldn't even be real. Over the next 10 games, he didn't cool off. He shifted into a level that doesn't exist for anyone else. He averaged 29.6 points, 13.1 rebounds, and 11 assists. But it's the efficiency that turns those numbers into something mythic. He shot 73% from the field, 51% from 3, and 87% from the line. Those aren't basketball statistics. They're something you'd expect from a video game where the sliders are maxed out. There's simply no precedent for a player, let alone a center, maintaining that level of precision over a prolonged stretch against modern NBA defenses. And that's the part that people gloss over. This isn't the 1960s, where offenses were primitive and spacing didn't exist. Today's defenses are analytics-driven, switch-heavy, and engineered to eliminate high-efficiency looks. Teams have entire scouting departments dedicated to preventing players from doing exactly what Jokic is doing every night. Yet none of it matters. While defenders jump breach, rotate, and scramble, Jokic floats through games untouched, flipping in shots with one hand, threading passes into windows that shouldn't be there, and rebounding like gravity bends differently for him. But here's the real kicker. These aren't empty numbers. They aren't the type of stat-padding stretches you sometimes see from stars on mediocre teams. During this 10-game run, Denver went 9-1. Every point, every rebound, every assist translated directly into wins. When Jokic elevated, the entire team rose with him. His efficiency didn't just boost his own stats, it optimized the entire system around him. The offense flowed cleaner, the pace settled into his rhythm, Role players got better shots. Opponents started the fourth quarter already defeated. It's rare to see a player dominate the game so completely without ever looking like he's breaking a sweat. But that's Jokic's overwhelming force wrapped inside a calm exterior. But these numbers only matter when a team is built to amplify them. For years, Denver rode Jokic's brilliance as far as it could go. But there was always one weakness hiding beneath the surface. Their margin for error shrank the moment he sat down. The bench struggled to maintain leads, spacing collapsed, and every non-Jokic lineup felt like a temporary timeout for the opposing team. That flaw didn't just cost Denver wins, it shaped the ceiling of entire seasons. But this year, something changed quietly, almost under the radar. Denver rebuilt its foundation without making a blockbuster move, without chasing headlines, and without disrupting the chemistry that already worked. They upgraded with precision, adding Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, Bruce Brown, and Jonas Valanciunas wasn't splashy on paper, but it completely reshaped their identity. Hardaway's quick trigger shooting stretches defenses in ways Denver hasn't seen in years. Cam Johnson, even when he's not hitting, creates gravity simply by standing on the weak side. His presence alone pulls defenders a step too far from Jokic, and that's all Jokic needs. Bruce Brown brings back the chaotic energy Denver missed desperately. Last season cuts, steals, mismatches, and a level of toughness that turns stagnant possessions into quick points. And Valanciunas gives Denver something they haven't had in the Jokic era, a backup center who can hold the fort without getting bullied. For the first time, Denver's bench doesn't feel like a liability. It feels like an extension of the starting lineup. Instead of collapsing leads, they protect them. Instead of surviving, they pressure teams. And with 4 shooters on the floor, Jokic now operates inside a perfect ecosystem. When defenders try to double, someone is open. When they stay home, Jokic dismantles his matchup one-on-one. Every possession becomes a mismatch created by spacing, timing, and trust. This wasn't a roster rebuild. It was a quiet repair of the one loose screw that had been rattling Denver's championship machine for years. And then came the part nobody predicted. Nobody expected Denver's offense to be elite. That was a given. But what blindsided the league was the transformation happening on the other end of the floor. Practically overnight, Denver jumped into the top 2 in defensive rating, a territory usually reserved for teams that rely on length, speed, and overwhelming athleticism. Denver isn't built that way. They aren't filled with high-flying wings who swallow up space. Their defense works for one simple reason: every role player bought into a level of physicality and discipline the team never had before. Aaron Gordon set the tone early, guarding every position from point guards to centers. Bruce Brown returned and brought back that chaotic defensive spark, the poked balls, the deflections, the sudden traps that blow up a possession before it starts. Cam Johnson competes harder on switches than he ever did in Brooklyn. Even Hardaway Jr., long criticized for inconsistent defense, locks in because Denver's system demands it. And Valanciunas, he's not just a replacement big, he's the anchor of the second unit, plugging the gap the Nuggets have struggled with for years. The combination of positioning, strength, and effort allows this group to survive the moments when Jokic takes a breather. But the most important shift is psychological. Last season, when games slowed down, Denver often looked uncomfortable. If the pace dropped, if the shots stopped falling, if the game turned into a grind, they struggled to adapt. This year is different. This version of Denver is built to win ugly. They can scrap through low-scoring battles, absorb physical hits, and grind out possessions without losing their identity. They don't panic. They don't rush. They force opponents to beat them in a style they don't want to play. And yet, even with a rebuilt bench and a transformed defense, all of this still doesn't explain Jokic's most terrifying evolution. There's efficient basketball, and then there's whatever planet Nikola Jokic is playing on right now. His shot chart doesn't look like something produced by a human being. It looks like a cheat code. Someone forgot to patch out of the game. 58% on jumpers, 78% on layups, 70% on hooks, 80% on floaters. These are numbers you expect from uncontested drills, not live NBA defenses loading up their entire game plan to stop one man. And yet every shot he takes feels inevitable, a slow-motion sequence where the defender already knows the ending but still has to play the role. What makes it unfair is that Jokic accomplishes all of this without the physical tools that usually define dominant scorers. He's not blowing by anyone with speed. He's not jumping over defenders. He's not bullying his way to the rim like a runaway freight train. Instead, he disarms opponents with angles, timing, and a level of touch that borders on supernatural. You can force him left, shade him right, double from the baseline, bring help from the elbow, none of it matters. If he wants the shot, he's getting the shot. And once it leaves his hand, there's a high chance it's going in. This is the closest the modern NBA has ever come to a Wilt Chamberlain-style scoring advantage. But with a twist Wilt never had, Jokic spreads the floor with elite passing, meaning defenses can't overload him without surrendering a layup somewhere else. Every possession becomes a lose-lose puzzle for the opponent, either give up the bucket or give up the assist. It's dominance, without brute force control, without chaos and efficiency that bends the rules of the sport itself. And there's only one team built to challenge that level of control. If there's one team built to stand in Denver's way, it isn't the Lakers, it isn't the Clippers, and it isn't the Warriors. It's Oklahoma City, a group so young, so deep, and so relentlessly disciplined that they've quietly grown into the only roster capable of matching Denver's ceiling possession for possession. While most contenders rely on a handful of aging stars or shaky depth, OKC arrives with a complete ecosystem length everywhere, shooting everywhere, and a defensive structure that survives even when their offense stalls. They don't beat teams with talent alone, they beat them with layers. The contrast between the two cores is what makes the matchup electric. Denver revolves around Jokic's all-encompassing gravitational pull, supported by veterans who understand timing, spacing, and rhythm. OKC, meanwhile, is built on SGA's surgical scoring, Jalen Williams' versatility, and Chet Holmgren's futuristic rim protection. Where Denver brings overwhelming skill and experience, OKC counters with speed, length, and a level of collective effort most teams can't sustain for 48 minutes. Depth might be the real battlefield, Denver's veteran bench versus OKC's wave of young, fearless contributors. Not many teams can survive when their stars sit, but these two can. And if these teams meet in the playoffs, SGA versus Jokic becomes the purest contrast of styles the league can offer. SGA lives in isolation footwork and slow-motion deception. Jokic lives in angles, anticipation, and orchestration. Every possession becomes a chess match, one side trying to break rhythm, the other trying to impose it. The matchup feels less like a series and more like the beginning of a Western Conference rivalry that could define the next 3 to 5 years. It's not a question of if they collide, it's when. And the idea of those two machines crashing into each other should make the rest of the league nervous. Which brings us to the uncomfortable conclusion. The strangest part of Jokic's rise isn't the numbers, the efficiency, or even the historic moments. It's the way the league reacts to them. He's not just dominating games, he's redefining what a superstar even looks like. No theatrics, no media campaigns, no constant headlines, just quiet, methodical destruction night after night. And because he doesn't package his greatness with dramatic flair, fans have started treating unprecedented performances like they're part of the weekly schedule. A 30-point triple-double, cool. A 70% shooting night, nice. Another handful of passes that bend the laws of geometry, standard stuff. The NBA community is watching one of the greatest offensive seasons ever played, and somehow it barely feels like a conversation. But the truth is, simple history is unfolding right in front of everyone, and most people aren't recognizing it. Jokic is walking the line between unstoppable scorer and full-time quarterback, reading defenses like a veteran NFL star, while casually dropping stat profiles we've only ever seen in Wilt Chamberlain documentaries. And he's doing it in an era where defenses are smarter, faster, and more prepared than ever. This isn't a gimmick or a hot streak. It's a new standard. What makes this season different is how perfectly Denver complements him now. Elite spacing stretches the floor in every direction. Improved defense gives Denver a safety net they lacked last year. Role players who understand their jobs keep the machine humming during every rotation. Everything around Jokic has sharpened, tightened, and aligned to make his skill set even more devastating. The system doesn't just support him, it amplifies him. So yes, the league can pretend this is normal. Fans can act unfazed. Analysts can downplay the insanity of his efficiency. But deep down, everyone knows what's happening. Jokic is quietly stacking one of the greatest offensive seasons in NBA history, and we're treating it like background noise. And if this is Jokic on cruise control, just imagine what happens when he hits playoff speed.